Romans 8:18, from suffering to glory. For I consider that the sufferings of the present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. Hello, coffee lovers. Jose with Third Day Coffee Seguin, and we're doing a special edition of God Country Coffee. This is Frank's last day. Those of you who know, when my son passed away, Frank came down and helped Micah basically take over my whole business. I mean, he had a self-interest because he had 250 boxes of pods that we owed him. But he came down and not only worked on his stuff, but he worked on my stuff. He worked on personal stuff. He helped me put in a door at Mom's house. So Frank's just been a real blessing. And Frank has had questions about translations, different Bible translations. And so I have studied a little bit about this, and what we wanted to do is give him a Bible. And we usually do this if you've ever been to one of our live events. Mike and I always have about 5 or 6 Bibles, and we give them out. When people ask questions, we just write in a Bible and we give it to them. And so Frank, because the translations, I'm giving you the best one, which is NASB. And so it's a nice little Bible to study with, and it's got Jesus' words in the red letters, so you can really focus on that. And Mike and I both wrote a couple of things, and I just can't thank you enough for all your help, brother.
Oh, thank you, and it's an honor, and it's what friends do for each other.
That's right. Absolutely. I'll miss you when you're gone tomorrow.
And the thumb's okay, by the way.
Well, that's good. I don't want to know about all that. All right. So now I'm going to move this over here to my real guests. Well, he's a real guest.
You're second.
I'm so sorry.
Can you tilt? It's tilted a little bit.
No, I'm just fat. Now the room's straight.
Well, that's the other way.
Oh my god.
The other way, Frank. The other way. You're going the wrong direction with a tilt.
They don't teach you left and right in the Coast Guard?
Okay. It's good enough. All right. So welcome to season 7, episode 5. By the way, Frank was in the Marines. But
The Coast Guard, the same thing.
Coast Guard is kind of like the same thing. My guests today are very special to our family. We haven't known them very long. But when JC committed suicide a few weeks ago, literally, we were kind of already talking. We kind of already started doing bread with Sonna. And then God sets everything up for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. There's nothing that happens by chance. And I am 100% certain that the Johnsons were put in our family to deal with the tragedy that we had to deal with. And so they've been here every step with us, literally from the day that JC killed himself till now. Sonna has been a rock for Connie, and all of them, the entire family, have been a huge support to our family. And so what we're going to do now is you guys get to introduce yourselves. You get to talk a little bit about where you guys are from and a little bit about your walk with Christ.
Ready to go.
Okay, I'll go first. I was just walking down the road and someone asked if I want to be on a radio program. I don't know who you people are. Anyway, so I got some kids, a whole bunch of kids. People think I'm crazy. What was I supposed to do?
Have
There
you
was
met
3
you?
things.
Introduce yourself
Oh, my name's Google. Now I'm gone.
and where you're from.
My name is Justin Johnson, and I'm from a little town probably no one's ever heard of called Craig, Colorado. Very, very small town. Joined the Army when I was 18, right out of high school. And then got to do a little stint in Afghanistan, and that was fantastic. And that was great. And then I got married. I met this girl.
You got married and then you met the girl?
Well, no. I'm talking about the one before you. After. No. With the real marriage, see, because I always introduce Sonna as my ex-girlfriend. And I'm like, calm down. She got promoted. It went the other way. It's not usually ex-girlfriend's a bad way. And I met her 2 weeks later. I deployed to Afghanistan. 2 weeks later.
Nope.
No.
You messed that up.
I met her 2 weeks later. No, I met her 2 weeks later. I married her. 2 weeks after that, I deployed to Afghanistan the whole first year of our marriage. So my dad had told me the first year of your marriage is the worst. So I left. It was fantastic. I had a great time. And Got to travel to foreign land and saw a bunch of people that were terrible and they tried to kill me. It was great.
We survived the first year.
Then after that, I got 10 kids, and for all y'all out there wondering, I mean, I look fantastic for having 10 kids, so you're welcome for that. And I have 9
Well
sons. You know, every morning I wake up and I said, "You are so lucky to have me," because if it weren't for me, you would be happy and you'd have all of no wrinkles and you'd be in good shape. Anyway, so that's really my story, man. You know, some nonsense happened, and it's always like, you know, God puts strange things in your life right when you're about to go through a crazy problem. And we started talking, not like dating talking. It kind of sounded like that, but not the same thing. So we're like talking, like, you know, kind of hanging out at church and stuff. And anybody who knows me at all or has been around me for more than 20 minutes and can actually stand it, I'm never serious. After the war, I never really became a serious person. It was never really my jam. So it's always nonsense and ridiculousness. So people hit like a low, and I'm there to like make them laugh, bring them to a different spot. I'm probably not the guy you're going to cry with. I'm the guy that's going to make fun of you. Like, for instance, Frank was a puddle pirate for a little bit, and that was cool. And I think JR was in like, yeah, I think JR was in like in the Navy Reserves or something, or Air Force or something. I'm not sure. So I'm not really sure how that went, but I think he got a 2-year stint and got kicked out or something.
What was your MO in the Army again? What did you do?
I was a cook.
He was a
All right,
cook.
and I don't want to brag, but I made it all the way to specialist. That was kind of a big deal. Now, to be fair, I went in as an E3 and got out as an E4 after 5 years, so it didn't go well. But you know, I was kind of a, you know, the general. You know, I knew him. Not true. I knew I heard his name once.
Heard his name.
But anyway,
You saw his name on your page 15 entry.
I'm kind of a nobody. But yeah, I've been married almost 20 years, which is cool because I couldn't put up with me for 20 years. That's for sure. I'd have run off. And that's me, really, in a nutshell of nonsense.
A nutshell of
Is that all I needed to answer?
Describes you well.
That's it. Sonna?
How do I follow that?
I don't know.
I couldn't even follow it, and I said it.
My
It's
entire
my
life,
podcast, and I can't follow it.
my entire life is not nonsense, except I got this guy.
Which is unfortunate.
But yeah, my name is Sonna. A lot of you have heard my name many times because this guy likes to talk about the bread. That's me. I am the nut that decided that the entire church needed to be milling our own wheat and baking our own bread. And boy, we jumped off of that bridge and went with it.
We did.
And that was awesome. We do, in fact, have 10 children.
Really?
And
I was making that part up.
9 of them are boys.
Yes.
I've got my one amazing daughter who is actually
Watching this
third
right now.
in line. You think she is?
Haley, we're famous. Go ahead.
My daughter was third in line, so no, we did not keep going hoping for a girl. We actually got her early on. Popular question.
And we're not Mormon or Catholic either. Not yet,
No.
anyway.
No, we didn't do it for all the traditional reasons, I suppose. But yeah, I was lucky enough to be married to this guy for like
I will
a really long
I'm
time.
going to interrupt you here for a second and just tell you that all 10 of their kids, not 1 or 2 or 3, we had 3 kids. JC eventually came to Christ, and so did my 2 daughters. But it was very hard fought. All 10 of their kids know the Lord. Every single one of them.
Yeah,
So-
man.
And not because of swear words.
Yes, not those words.
You'd think.
No, really though, they're fantastic kids, and they do have a love for God. And we've been in situations in large group settings where my children have stood up to pray over the group. That was pretty cool. They are definitely on fire for Jesus, and they know how to love huge. They love well, and they will come up and give anybody the world's greatest hug, and they just show Jesus through how much they care about people. I don't know, they're pretty awesome people.
They are pretty awesome people. I can't even begin to explain how this family's been for us, over the last, almost 40 days now. But I learned back when Dad died in 2016 that God really was the most important thing. I thought I knew that. I thought I was pretty good with that. Wasn't until my mom called me and on that Saturday that I really truly started to realize what really is important and what's not important. And what's important is that we know the Lord. Nothing else really matters, like zero. I kept to remind myself constantly that who I work for, I don't work for. I work for God, and so I have to please Him. I don't have to please the people that I physically work with. I don't have to please my job. If I want to stay employed, I do, but we focus so much on this little tiny speck that represents the time that we have on this earth versus setting ourselves up for eternity. And I still don't understand what that means. It's so big, my brain can't really fathom that, what that means, what that size is, how big that is, how long it is. I can't process the word eternity. And that's what we get to spend with our loved ones and with God. And so, how did you guys find your faith? Because you don't raise a family like yours. Just one day you meet somebody, after a bachelor party in Vegas, get married, and then
I gotta tell you
and then you got 10 kids.
We're not going to talk about
So,
Vegas.
okay.
Oh, man. Woo! All right. Okay, so crazy story, right? I was in Las Vegas, and
We're not going to talk
we're gonna
about
tell the story.
Vegas.
It's gonna happen. And so I was, and I looked good back then. Don't let this fool you. It's a
He did. There was once a time in his life.
there's a frame here that ain't looking very good. He's looking at that rascal and be like, I used to be something. But anyway, so I was in Vegas, and a girl walked up to me and she's like, hey, I'd like to go with you. And I was like, look, man, I had sauna in it, and then that's when I knew I needed to marry her. So you said, how do you find your faith? It's a great question for sure. And what really stands out in my mind is the first time I ever got shot at in Afghanistan, right? So you're taking contact, and all of a sudden, all the cool stuff I had, my truck, none of that stuff mattered. I was far from home, could die at any second. You really realize that you don't realize God is all you need until He's all you have. And it's cliche. People say that a lot, but it's true. So it's all a matter of perspective. So as you get busy, as you're doing things in life, as you're kind of cruising down the road, and you're really dead set and focused on that, God will put something in your way. So back to Vegas, there was this really great looking, awesome chick that I was dating. I didn't want to have my life move forward without her. I feel like Ricky Bobby. Some people will get that. But I mean, anyway, so there's just pieces and parts in play when God shows up. And I'm going to take a minute to plug my friend Don Curry. So Don Curry, I met this guy, and I'm sure you won't mind me saying anything about him, but I met him through a thing. We went to a thing because we're both vets, and he introduced me to a group called the Tunnel Boys. And the Tunnel Boys, that's the name of our Bible study. And you never know what kind of help you're going to need in a dark tunnel, and then they're in there with you. So Don Curry kind of got down into the pit of my life with something that was going on, and he decided he was going to help me find the way out. For no reason. I didn't know him anything. I had just met the guy. He's got a fantastic dog named Ranger, service dog. That's how we met. Great guy, just a fantastic human being. And you just never know how God's going to get in your way. So I don't know that you ever find your faith. I'm of the opinion that your faith finds you. So as you're getting hammered and his life is just coming down on you, and that's what marriage is about. Marriage is you're in a situation with another person and you're willing to get beat up with them. That's what it goes, right? It's going to get hard. It's not going to be convenient. You're going to be asked at Costco if you can stop, and people are like, are all these kids? I'm like, who brings someone else's kids to Costco? What's wrong with you? Yes, they're my kids. Yeah, found them on the way here. Insane. Ask me crazy questions. How do you think that happens? I'm like, I give a class on Thursdays, but we'll leave that one in. So, they're always asking you stupid questions about your family, and you're trying to be kind about it.
How does this relate back to finding your faith?
Oh yeah, well God probably checked offline on that comment there, but he'll be back. I just think you find your faith through your situations and the people around you is what I think. What do you? I'm fixing to get a talking
You started with the Vegas story that you never fully completed, and then jumped over to Afghanistan, and somehow now
that
we're
woman
in
ran
Costco.
off. Don't worry about it. We're in Costco now. If you can follow me at home, you're doing way better than me. Get a piece of paper and a pen because I'm completely lost. Let me just start it.
He tried to warn you.
I told you not to go live.
He did, but it's good. I'm telling you, it's going to be wow. Where do I even go with that?
Who knows where we're at? Well, you said something about faith. We're talking about God.
We are. We're talking about Vegas
and I'm over here
God.
acting like a fool. Go ahead.
I don't think there's much God in Vegas.
You know what?
I've been there.
So there are church. So I've found in
I
my
didn't
life.
say there's no God. I
No,
said there's not
right.
much.
But the more depravity you're near, the more people that are in it that don't want it. Like for instance, in Afghanistan, there's no God in that place. But you started to see changes when we were there with people because they're like, and I went to a place called Mighty Oaks, and what their big thing is if what you're doing isn't working, why not try something else? And then that kind of really kind of rung true to me, because I, kind of beating my head against the wall for the last, just having kid. If what you're doing ain't working, anyway, correct this up. I shouldn't do that. You shouldn't have 900 kids. What's the point of that? But I mean, but if what you're doing isn't working, why not try something else? And I think that's very important as you're kind of going down the road of life of like, hey, listen, this is not working out. This is not going well. Let's try to readjust. Let's adjust fire. And the other thing I'll tell people is you can't hit a target you can't see. So people say, how do you get to where you are today? Well, and I don't know, we'll probably go into the serious stuff later, but Sonna has painted a very clear picture for us at our house. So for instance, fresh milled wheat, getting a lot of the toxins out, just creating like a place or a piece that makes sense in your life. And you can't hit that target if you can't paint a clear picture of what you want that to look like. So I think God paints a real clear picture. You need to read your Bible. There's a lot of biblical literacy out there, and you need to read your Bible and see what it says, and that's important. That would be my answer on that, I think.
That's pretty bold. That's pretty. What about you? I know you got a lot to say. Y'all have. I got to tell you, these people have such great insight, and nothing happens. Like I said, absolutely nothing happens by chance. And they were put in our life at a time when they didn't know it. We didn't know it, but God already knew that we were going to need them, and they've all been here. So
We've been hanging out for a few years.
we had been hanging out a little bit, but not like we weren't leaning on y'all.
You just decided to kick it up a notch.
We were not leaning on y'all.
Well, there's seasons, I mean,
There is.
people always say that one of the things is, how are you going to send all your kids to college, or how are you going to do whatever for your kids? And I tell them, I said, listen, I don't have the grace for that situation because I don't need it now. I'd squander it. I'd mess it up. So sometimes people come in and you're out of your life for seasons because you're in that place to help that person at that time, but it won't always be that way. So I think that, and you have to, you walk a fine line between helping someone and enabling them. And that's been a really important lesson that we've had to learn, just to help people in that place where they are. And also to not expect them to be something they're not. I had an old Marine friend that told me one time, I wonder if Leonard ever watches, but anyway, an old Marine friend that said, he said, if people show you who they are, believe them. I think sometimes you want people to be something that they aren't, and that they're not, and you've got to be really cognizant of that. So help where you can, try to be intelligent, and laugh. I think one of the biggest things after I saw the war and death and destruction and dying, a lot of people died. It's hard for me to be serious, but there are times when that is absolutely is a necessity. But then when it isn't, it's time to laugh. That's where I'm going to kind of come in and say, hey, let's kind of look at this, or let's kind of look at that. Let's get out of that space that you're in. So sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's really not, but what do you do?
It's been
I'm
really
there
helpful.
for the serious stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's this guy who has his part to play. he has a place.
Well, I could tell you that they run their house like a well-oiled machine, and all their kids. Micah is 16. He's been running this business for probably 2 weeks before JC's suicide, and since then he's been completely doing. Him and Frank have been doing every aspect of it, and he works another full-time job. So at 16, how does a young man? I want to say kid, but I can't call Micah a kid because he's not. How does a 16-year-old kid have that kind of?
I can call him a kid.
Well, you can.
I'll call him a kid. No problem.
Have that kind of drive, have that kind of discipline, have that kind of work ethic.
Well, and a whole big part of that is his personality. That's just who Micah is. Micah is driven. He is focused. He is 100%. He can't sit still. So he's got to have 100 different things going on. But he also grew up on a farm. We have completely remodeled our entire house, and he was hands-on in the middle of that entire project. So even at home, there's no just sitting around doing nothing. There's no sitting in front of the TV. We got work to do. We have to feed the animals. We have to build fences. We have to cut down the trees. He built my closet. He's built a couple of my bathrooms. He remodeled everything in my house right alongside our contractors. So I think a lot of it is just your expectations, and a lot of it is his own personality. That's who God built him to be. All of my kids are hard workers, but they all have their own strengths.
But they didn't wake up one day either and just be that. God made them who they were, but they had quite a bit of help from y'all. I mean,
Well, I think that I've always had a really big picture of what I wanted our family to look like. And then there's just a whole lot of prayer involved in that. And I do my best, he does his best, and God does everything else.
Yeah.
We can't do it all.
Let's talk about prayer. Emphasis on prayer, Justin.
Well, first I want to say, before, when he built that closet, after it fell down and we had to rebuild it, that's where I think a lot of it. I didn't want his head to be too big before he rolled out of here, but we built the closet. It fell down. We got it rebuilt. Now we can.
It did not fall down. But what about the hot water heater that caught fire?
Once the fire went out, it worked pretty well.
The water was hot for a little while.
It was. I've never had
water heater caught on fire.
Started to smoke. He wasn't on
We've
fire.
never had a hot water heater that made hot water on both sides,
Hey, there you go.
coming in and out. No, okay, what was the question?
Question was prayer. Your emphasis on it.
So, what is prayer to me, right? It's talking to God at all times. It's not like, I mean, I guess there are those times when you have to have a real reverent prayer where you're being respectful, because God, you can't joke too much about that. But every time we go out, so people will see, where do you see God in your life, right? That's a great question. God is with us every step of the way. Like when I can take 10 kids to the park and we all make it back alive and no one killed themselves, or, I mean, kids are trying to kill themselves every 15 minutes. It's all you can do just to keep them alive. They're crazy.
Jumping out of trees.
Just wild stuff, man. It's like, why? And
They'll
then,
be on top of the swings, like
yeah, and you should think,
literally
like,
up there.
your goal in life should not be to murder your brother. Like, do I have to tell you that? I mean, the new ways of things you'd never think to say, but God is with us in every step of the way. And the world is dangerous, and the world is, and sometimes it can be said that we give our kids kind of an unrealistic idea of what reality really looks like, because we live in a safe spot. We live out of town. There's not a whole lot of nonsense that goes on in or around our property. And downtown, I mean, you look at the news. I mean, you're going to get bummed out in 10 minutes. Don't watch the news. But God does put that hedge of protection around you. But it's like talking to your friend. It's like, God, we need to get through today. Like today is, this is happening, and he's with you. Just talk to him. I mean, I don't know that prayer needs to be in a formal setting. I mean, for sure. But there again, your words matter. So what do you say to people? Can you pray over people just by talking to them? Like, we were at Costco the other day, which is always fantastic with 10 kids. You want to talk about a good time, just come over and we'll do that for a little bit. But anyway, my kids were pretty well behaved, and people, your kids are awesome until we go to Costco. Then they're, joining and jumping. But this time was actually pretty good. And they'd fed us, and that's probably the only place on the planet now you can feed a family of 12 for like $60, which is awesome. But we went to Costco, and when we were done, I mean, how many people I walked up to the counter and I said, thank you for serving us. Thank you for feeding us. Thank you for, coming to work today. I think it was New Year's Eve. Like, who in their right mind's out on New Year's Eve anyway? Us. But who's out, it was just like, thank you. Thank you for doing. Why can't you just be positive? Like, why can't your interactions either be funny or positive? Why do you have to focus on the negative? And my prayers, I always pray constantly. I said, God, thanks. I'm not in a wheelchair today. I got out of bed this morning. No one's shooting at me. I got running water. I got carpet. I'm in good shape, man. Of course I'd like to make more money. Of course I'd like to, maybe have a girlfriend or something. I'm just kidding. I mean, of course, yeah, that's a can of problems you don't need. But I mean, everyone there can be something in your way.
You're gonna get struck by lightning. Well, take it easy.
Oh, I can't sit too close to the front of church. My hair starts to smoke. Back up 4 or 5. I'm what you call a back row Baptist in the back there.
We're just gonna go ahead and end that right there. If you want to talk about prayer, man, you should see my son Joshua. Joshua is a prayer warrior. That boy, he will pray over anybody at any time, and he is, dear Heavenly Father. We have a good friend of ours who had eye surgery, emergency eye surgery, maybe 4 months ago. Yeah. And to this day, he prays over her daily, and she's gotten 98% of her vision back, and he still says, thank you for giving her 98. Let's see her get to 100. Faithfully every day. That boy has taught me how to pray.
How old is Joshua?
But Josh turned 8. Josh is 8.
Night.
But the prayer and the heart of a child.
Yeah, prayer is huge for us too, because growing up Catholic, I got in the habit of saying, and I'm not beating the Catholic faith up, I'm just telling you my personal experience with my Catholicism was, can I do anything for you? Can I help you? Well, if the least I can do is pray for you. And today that's so wrong, because it's not. Prayer is the best thing I can do for anybody. When people started calling and reaching out after JC's, I told everybody, yeah, I need something. I need you to pray for us. Don't make it the last thing you do. Make it the first thing you do. And one thing that y'all suggested that I had never done is Connie and I pray together and pray out loud. And it happened in this room right after I took the phone call from Mom. Connie stopped me and she prayed. She prayed over both of us. And since that moment, we have prayed together. We do Bible study together.
Yeah.
We are, we're sharing that gospel with JC's mom and Andrew, and we're not ashamed of it, and you shouldn't be ashamed of, it's like people always use God on a shelf. They just put him up there, and then when something really bad happens, then, oh, well, everything else that I've done has failed. Let me ask God now. Versus, hey, God, there's no way I'm getting through this. I need you right now, not later.
Right.
And so that's one thing that Connie and I, it's changed our marriage. My marriage changed when I surrendered to Christ. It changed again when I took my place in the home. What the Bible says my position is, I'm supposed to be the leader of my home, supposed to be the priest of my home, my family. When I took that role, my wife fell in love with me. And we tell people that all the time because we were married for 13 years at that point. So the fact that we were married for 13 years and I wasn't on an episode of, what's that one where the girls, they freak out? Snapped. I wasn't on an episode of Snapped.
Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah, Unsolved Mysteries. I didn't die of arsenic poisoning or anything. It was a miracle in itself. But to be married that long, God's got purpose for us, and I knew it. But it wasn't until I took my place in the home that we really fell in love with each other. And then even then, we still struggled because we weren't praying together. And there's a lot to be said about major things in your life. Like when you went to Afghanistan, all of a sudden the truck and everything you had back home didn't really mean that much to you because there were other things that were like right here that really mattered. Am I going to go home? Am I going to make it back to the fob tonight?
Well, in one piece, guys lose their legs, guys get blown up, and stuff can be a problem in everyone's life, right? You want more stuff, but we have a motto in our house: if it ain't broke, it ain't ours. So there's really nothing. Okay,
you boys laugh. It's true. We have 9 sons and puppies. Oh, the puppies.
Whenever I buy something at the store at Walmart, I'm like, y'all just want to break it here to save me the trip back? You just bust it here and I'll take it and exchange it. You don't have to wait till we get home. But point is, it's just, not that it's all junk. I'm not saying because you're going to need stuff to get through life. You are, but when you speak the name of Jesus over something or over people, speak the name. So you're right. If I'm coming to God at the end part, then I've got it backwards. You got to come to God at the beginning part. Like, hey, God, just help me not act a fool. Help me to talk. Like, even with this, when because we had my nephew who passed away. He was hit and killed on a motorcycle a couple years ago. And we walked through death before. And the first time I saw death was I turned 22 years old in Afghanistan, and people died there a lot. And so I was kind of callous to that point. I guess I've been kind of callous to feelings, but when you're walking through something and you're navigating through something, especially something that heavy, you just pray before you even show up. Like, God, don't let me make a fool of myself. Help me to have the right words. And sometimes you don't need to say nothing. You just need to listen. And I think probably some of the best marriage advice I ever got was, do you want to be married or do you want to be right? So, when you're talking with your wife, you got to be right all the time. Let her be wrong. Who cares? She's wrong.
Wait, what? How did I get drug into this?
Like, you can be wrong.
Wow.
Sit over there and be wrong by yourself. I don't have to be part of
I
your,
really can't move any further away.
I don't have to be part of your illusion to be wrong by yourself. But anyway, so I'm just saying,
So
that's
God
marriage
said
advice, right?
that they'll fall to your left and your right, but you will be fine. You're good.
Trying to bring me into your wrongness with you. I don't need that negativity.
I'm scared sitting here.
So how much life nowadays, based on American culture, is completely distracted? We're distracted on our phones. We're distracted with TV. We're distracted with all these other things. And so what's happening in real life and all around you, and I mean real life, not what's happening on the news, what's happening in real life in your home right now is being missed. Mm-hmm. But we have 10 children. We have a farm that we tend to. We have to milk the cow. We got to feed the hogs. We've got to gather the eggs. So we don't have the extra distractions because we simply don't have time for it.
Right.
So every single day, that we make it through a day where the kids are safe and unharmed, where the livestock survived and there was no major problems, we see the miracles day in and day out. We see where God provided hay when there's no hay to be found, or where God keeps the children fed, where, somebody will call up and be like, hey, I've got all of these hand-me-downs. Can you guys use them? Of course. We can always use hand-me-downs.
Yeah.
But day after day, people want to know, how can you afford 10 children? I don't have to afford 10 children. All I have to do is be faithful. God has to pay for the children.
Yeah.
I just have to get up every day and do what God tells me to do. So I think a big part of the lifestyle that we chose made it easier to see the miracles in our life. And then we have a really big habit in our house of making sure the kids see those miracles in our lives. So we don't try to make it look like we're the superheroes. We pulled this off. We kept it all together. We're like, guys, God did this and God provided that. And we're very open with our kids about the way God provides for them and the way God provides for us and the way he saved us out of this situation or that situation. So you say, how is it that my kids are so close to God? God is literally integrated into their life in every aspect. Everything we do is God.
Now, I do run around the house in a cape once in a while, though, just to show them who's the boss. But
and then there's that guy.
The biggest miracle we had here recently was I'll tell you a story about chickens here in a minute too. But the biggest, we had this raccoon who's eating my chickens, and somebody ran off the road to hit him over there by the church. Now, I've been praying for that rascal to meet his end for 3-4 days. Somebody will run him over. So that is one of the biggest miracles I've had here recently. And whenever the chickens are acting up, I walk out on the back porch eating a plate of chicken wings to show them what I'm capable of. I'm like, y'all need to start laying eggs. You're fixing to be these chicken wings. So you just never know. That's just to help it along a little bit.
I'm sure that has a huge impact.
Mm-hmm. I will tell you that that Justin has, this whole thing for me and Connie has been up and down. And so for me, I've had more up and downs, I think, than Connie has. Connie's been more of a rock, and she's got support. So it wasn't that shocking. But for me, I've had these ups and downs. And there's some days where I come home and as I drive a lot for work now. And so one of the drives is like 3.5 hours. And when I get quiet and I get in that vehicle, and even if I'm listening to music or whatever, life just kind of slows down for a minute, and grief, sometimes tries to catch me. And Justin throws these absolutely ridiculous.
Oh yeah, they can't be on this program here, and we'll get.
Yeah, if he but God has blessed him with a sense of humor that is unparalleled.
Is it a blessing?
It's a blessing. Yes, it's a
20
blessing.
years.
Look, my girlfriend appreciates it. I don't know why you can't get on board.
It's an absolute blessing, and I can't tell you how it comes at a point where, and I mean, yeah, it's funny because it just is, but at the same token,
you're telling me that God told him to make those videos for you?
Yes, God told him to make those videos and give them to me when I needed them. Absolutely.
It's a score.
Absolutely. When I needed them, he handed them over. And I can tell you that, I went from crying with pain to crying because
Still
I'm
crying.
laughing so hard. And I dragged Connie into it too because, she's like, oh my God, he's crazy. And I'm like, no,
that's
he's
true.
Connie, I just apologize right now.
I had a little incident
you
at a
have
water
had to
park
endure.
coming down a slide at about 115 mile an hour, a little chubby, and it turned out bad for everybody. Almost
poor
killed the
lifeguard.
lifeguard. So look, and when you're chubby and you're coming down, the water slides ain't meant for big folk.
I actually heard she retired after that.
You know what? She's probably in therapy.
We're probably gonna post the video.
Oh my God!
Eventually, I'm definitely gonna post the Costco video.
Oh no!
Because that one is beyond. Yeah, I think Justin needs to have his own.
I'm probably gonna get kicked out of the church.
Stand-up comedy.
I've had a couple talking tos about my content on the social media. Sure. Like, hey man, I'm like, all right, you're right. That was a little far.
We're just normal people, And I tell people all the time because, people think that like they have to adjust their who they are, you do have to adjust your behavior. Because once you do surrender your life and you receive Christ, you are supposed to strive to sin less. That's the whole point of the game, right? Be grateful for the sacrifice that God made for us. But He uses each and every one of us exactly the way we are.
And our gifts.
And He uses our gifts.
Well, and to your point, like I had to try to stop swearing because in the military, that's just kind of the way it goes. The F word's kind of a comma. Not a good deal. So I came up with, I just go fantastic. So that's whenever you hear me say fantastic, that's probably like 9 swear words. So my kids will do something like, get in the car means run around like idiots till dad says the F word. That's what it means. So get in the car and they're running around. So I'm like, fantastic, get in the car. And my kids have probably started picking up on it. But you're right. You do have to clean up some speech. You have to clean up some, and just interactions. Like you try not to have negative because you never know who's watching. I mean, and people come up to me like, or to Sonna more mainly, like, man, you really handled your kids well in that. And you were kind of really frustrated. And they're running around like psychos. I mean, I love them. I do. And they will try your inner gangster every 10 seconds. Like, you are crazy. They will fight you. My little one spanked the big one the other day. So you've got to kind of watch that. But they're crazy, man, for no reason.
Names on that.
Good night of living. Yeah, he was going to get the spoon and spank the other one the other day.
Anyhow.
Yeah, he spanks folks.
That is awesome.
Anyway.
Well, I never script these things because I never know where God's going to take them. But some of the biggest challenges you had raising 10 kids in a Christian home.
The world has been the biggest challenge. Like, hey, man, the world's going to tell you that you need to be this or that, or you need to do this thing. And now I'm not saying not to be like intolerant of folk. I mean, everyone kind of does it different, but that's just not the way we're going to do it. Right. So as the world creeps in, I mean, I think you have 2 main jobs as a parent, in my opinion. Number 1 is to keep your kids out of prison. That's the first job. So there has to be consequences to actions, which I'm not the greatest at that. Like, kids will act crazy, and I'm like, it'll work itself out. Then a fist fight ensues, and there's blood and crying, and it's fine. Yeah, I'm the wimp for sure. But I mean,
say wimp.
Oh,
I said you're the soft
sure.
one.
And then secondly, I think that it's also your job to show them you need to be what God is to you, and are you that? So, are you generous? Are you kind? Are you soft-spoken? Are you patient? Do you wait? 9 times out of 10, I fail at those things. I am not those things because I have a little bit of a brain injury, so I don't think things out real good. Sometimes there's never a step past what I'm doing presently. But I think that it's important when you're raising kids, you need to be patient, you need to listen, and you need to let them fail. We want to talk about all Micah's awesomeness, but Micah is a great kid. Don't get me wrong, but boy, that kid can fail with the best of them. I'm talking like he was my first clumsy ninja. That dude will crash going up the stairs. So just kind of let him fail in whatever he's doing. But your house needs to be a safe place to fail. I need to show you what that, and I exhibit that. I fail all the time. And I'll come to my kids and say, listen, because here's what a fight goes at my house. 2 kids will have an altercation. Then we move to the 45-minute court case of that altercation. Then we call witnesses. And the witnesses will collaborate at stories, and then someone gets in trouble. So, I mean, you have to be fair. You have to run. By the 9th or 10th court case in the hour, you're kind of done with it. But your house needs to be a safe place for them to fail, and they need to learn. Sonna is just fantastic at multitasking. She's fantastic at making sure the kids are doing where they need to do, keeping the house clean, making sure that it doesn't look like one time I came home from work, I'm like, Sonna, were we robbed? And she's like, no, I didn't clean up before I went to the park. Because it looks like, rascal, some burglar broke in there and tore the place up, but that's just my kids. So you just never know. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with that question.
So it seems like 100% of what we do goes against the grain. We don't do anything traditionally. Everything that we do, from homeschooling, we milk our own cow, we grind our own wheat and bake our bread. We teach our children to be selfless. We teach our children to put other people before themselves, even if it hurts. That you need, but we also have to teach them that it's okay to have healthy boundaries, and it's okay to know when to say no. And there's a really fine line between being selfless and giving when you see a need, and being able to say no, I can't do that. That wouldn't be healthy for me, and teaching them how to do that. So I think one of the really big challenges that I run into is being able to navigate that without my children feeling like aliens in our culture. How do you go against the grain and do everything different without isolating yourselves and your family and seeing what your children go through when they don't get to be like all the other kids? But I've seen normal, and I don't want anything to do with it.
Nope.
So
I'm
they will
100%
say,
with you on
well,
that.
that's not normal. Or all the other kids, I don't want to be normal. And I don't want you to be normal. I want you to be what God's called you to be. And teaching the kids to stand on their own 2 feet rather than being influenced by the world around them, because we don't do things the same as the world around us. And God has just called us to do what we do. God has not called us to do what other people do.
But there's so much there. And when y'all look at when people that know y'all, when we look at your family, there's so much there to be said for not conforming with the norm, with culture, because I mean, we struggle with our 3 kids most of their life to get them to where they believed in the Lord. You know, I mean, you got 10 of them.
Well, and
They're all on board.
that's a challenge as well, because it may look like we have it all together, but we struggle with our 10 kids too.
Whoa,
And they
I'm
have their
fantastic.
moments. I struggle with my 10 kids too. And
Your
you know,
11 kids.
he counts as 2. I got 12.
Can't keep myself together most of the time. Go ahead.
But raising 1 kid is hard. Raising kids is hard. People are sticky, they are tricky and messy, and sometimes it gets ugly.
But you exhibit what you want them to do. Are you doing that? So are you reaching out? I mean, say for instance, and death will bring you to that. What if today was your last day? How'd that last interaction go? How did that last talk go? Were you intelligent? Did that make sense? And I have kind of a problem with short-term memory, so I don't hold a grudge, number one, which is fantastic. And if you ever tell me a secret, I'm going to forget it, so you feel free. But it's gone. I go to sleep. I don't know what you said. I tell the same stories over and over. You'll probably hear the same thing again. But, I can't expect my kids to be anything that I'm not. Right? You should be more patient. Well, Dad,
That's
you're not
great.
patient. Like one time I got after one of my kids, and my kid's like, Dad, I'm just a little boy. You're like, yeah, you're right. You're right. But anyway, don't kick your brother off the hay bale again. Okay. That's not cool. So, and you have to kind of tell them instruction. And I think you have to be very clear, and they find new ways to break the rules, and you have to be patient. For instance, you shouldn't have to tell one kid not to spit into his brother's cup. You shouldn't have to tell him that, but you do. You wouldn't think that, but it's, you come up with some new rules and new ways to break them. So they do awesome things. And our kids are so great. But when you get to see, it's almost like the best in you. When you see them exhibit a trait you've taught them, then it's like, man, I'm doing something good here, right?
God is doing something
God
good
has been
here.
fantastic. And when I'm wearing the cape and I'm walking around and having everybody thank me, it's a good day. That's all I'm saying.
With or without pants?
Depends on if there's
Do
company.
you really want to know?
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Well, yeah. I mean, I want to know if you run around in your whitey tighties with a cape.
That'd be tight.
Is the cape red?
I want that mental image to be with you, a big old bellied guy in whitey tighties and a cape. As you taking a shower tonight, that's the last thing I want you to see. Me. You're welcome.
You want him thinking about you while he's in the shower?
Yeah, in my underwear with a cape, saving you. I'm gonna make a poster later.
He's probably going to send me
So,
a video that I'm going to pass out with.
I pretty much handle all the parenting.
Yes, you can tell.
Good gosh.
There is
I like to eat food.
Justin has kept me laughing. I can tell you that.
It gets
But-
old. It gets old.
But they've also, these 2 people right here have also done a lot for me and Connie personally, in a sense that we do. Our marriage changed when Dad got saved. It changed when I got saved. It changed again when I took over the household like I was supposed to, and it changed again when JC took his life. And it changed again after that, because even after that, I didn't really know what direction we were going to go in. But they've been such a huge influence on what we've done. And one of the things that we did, that Connie and I did, aside from praying out loud in front of each other and knowing what each other's concerns are and what our prayers are, and is that, we went and took time and we got away from everybody and recentered and said, okay, one of the things that Justin told us at their dinner table the Monday after it happened, 2 days after it happened, he said, you and Connie, whether you like it or not, are leaders of the church, and everybody is watching, whether you think they are or not. Everybody is watching, and you can either let this thing, you can fall into all the devil's traps of guilt and regret and all these things that the devil does, and you can let it destroy yourself, or you guys can show God through this whole thing. And so far, that's what we've done. We've showed everybody who's come in contact with us and with the situation that God has done so much with JC's death, that on his own. My son couldn't have done what God's done in 5 lifetimes. He could have had 10 lifetimes, and he could have never accomplished, even if he did nothing but God 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for his whole life. He couldn't have done it in 5 lifetimes. His mother's come to Christ. Other people are talking about it. There's so many seeds that have been planted. But, the biggest thing is that, Connie and I have, I don't know, we've got this strength and this boldness and this conviction from God that that's what we're supposed to do. And that only comes from God. You don't just pull it out of thin air. But it also comes because he puts people in front of us, right? He crosses our paths. And so if you're one of those that think, oh, yeah, it's a coincidence, it's not a coincidence. If you meet somebody, there's purpose for that. We met some people this morning that want to do coffee. We could have had a conversation on the phone. They drove here from Houston. And
Just for coffee?
just to
You got
talk
some
about
good coffee.
doing coffee.
For this coffee?
This coffee. We're not going to say who Justin promotes. Both of them, actually.
Hold up.
He made me
Hold
change
on,
my
hold
shirt.
on.
Look
She
at
made me
yeah.
change
Well, we got you now.
Today
You're
we-
in the
we
shop.
promote-
But
I
they-
was bribed with food. by
he
the way.
was bribed with food. I did feed him first.
That's all.
uh,
I'm for sale. If anyone wants,
They say that that food calms the savage beast. I don't know. But no, we've had some pretty great times even though in the midst of a tragedy, to be able to look back and tell everybody, look, this is what God can do. This is what he's doing. Because if those of you who know me really well, I'm not the strong person. I can't even sit through a national anthem without boo-hooing. I've never seen Old Yellow, but I'm sure if I did, I'd probably cry when
that's
they
a
killed
good
the
one.
dog. Connie will tell
can't give
you
away the ending.
that, well, I mean, it's an old movie.
Do they run off the road to hit it or what?
They haven't seen it now. I don't know when they're going to see it, but Connie can tell you from our marriage that I'm the one that gets really emotional. In fact, we went to counseling one time, and the counselor talks to me, and Connie talks to both of us, and then she looks at me, and she's like, "Okay, so here's my assessment: is emotionally," and she's looking at me, and she's like, "You're the female," and she looks at Connie, and she's like, "You're the male," and I'm like, "Oh, well, I feel much better about myself now that I came to counseling." And so anyway, I've always been that person, and I've never been the one that's been able to be strong. And when my dad died, I climbed into a bottle and I stayed there for 20 days, probably more than 20 days. But before his body was even picked up by the mortuary, we were probably a fifth down already. And I just stayed there. I stayed numb in the alcohol for a long time, 3 weeks almost. And so it was different because even though I knew that Dad had prayed to receive Christ, I hadn't really done that yet. And I was still living in my checkboxing world. And so I didn't know what it really meant. But once I did, everything changed. And so this whole experience has not only brought us closer to friends that God put in place for us, but it's changed everything in a very positive sense. And how do I say that? Out of a horrible tragedy, you don't bury your children. That's like the most unimaginable. And then to make it worse, suicide, it's even worse because you don't get to ask questions. It's not like they had cancer and you knew they were going to die. There's so much unanswered stuff that goes on that you don't get to have answers to. And that's another thing that the Johnsons have been really awesome about is, and also the Gavicks, they're other friends of ours. They lost a child. And so the counsel that God has put in place for us has been so sound and so biblically, pertinent to our situation that Connie and I are, I'm not going to tell you we're okay because we're never, ever going to be okay. We're never going to be the same. Let me take that back. We're okay. We're not the same. And we will never be the same. This experience has changed our lives. And it's a permanent change. It's not something that's going to evolve later. It's where it is. It's a permanent change. Are we okay? Absolutely, we're okay. And not only are we okay, but we're blessed with people that when we do get weak, I get stupid videos about
So
bad meat.
Justin will literally come and be like, I need to go take a minute. I have to go make a video. JR needs to laugh today. Like
told you.
he knows.
Well,
hey,
first off, I told you don't be wearing lipstick to counseling. I done told you that one time, and you would have been called the female.
there
You
are
wouldn't
times.
have lipstick in the counseling session. That wouldn't happen. And Gavick, isn't that the guy that's in the Coast Guard Reserves? That's the Coast Guard guy. Isn't he?
Oh,
He's in the reserves of the Coast Guard.
I'm
He's a
so sorry.
He is a fantastic puddle pilot. Go
Listen,
ahead.
you're the one that has a full poster size picture of Nathan.
He is my
With
hero.
no shirt on?
He is my hero. Where do you think
I
I?
forgot about
Where
that.
do you think I get the cape idea from? He wears a cape in my mind. Nathan, you're dancing through my mind in a cape right now. In the Coast Guard Reserves.
Dude, you're living in that brain for free. I just want you to know.
Rent free.
Rent
terrorizing
free.
But and I would actually completely, totally disagree with that assessment of one being more emotional than the other. As someone who doesn't exhibit emotions, I think emotions are powerful and they're going to lead you. And I think you can be more sensitive to what other people are going through. So I would say, don't look that gift. Don't look that gift away. Because you are more emotional, you're going to understand someone who has an emotional response. I personally do not. So when my kids or wife comes to me with an emotion or an emotional response, I don't understand it, but you do. So don't miss that ministry opportunity. Don't say, hey, I'm not equipped. You are more equipped than I would be to walk into certain situations. Some people I am not funny to. It's not funny. It's not something you should be joking about. And hey, look, they can be wrong by themselves. I don't need to be in that space. You need to go over there and be, and be that person. But I think God gives people different gifts, different opportunities. Like I'm always like, there's probably rich Christians out there that and that's their circle. That's the people that they minister to or whatever piece or part you're in. It's my goal in life to save the entire Coast Guard, because I know Frank's in the Coast Guard and Mr. Gavick's in the Coast Guard. So the Coast Guard's a bunch of good folk. They really are. And, I'm here for them.
Yeah. I just want you guys to know how much Connie and I love you guys and your whole family. I mean, Haley's been here doing coffee. Mark's been here doing coffee. Micah's always here doing coffee. And I just, we appreciate you guys so much. I can't stress enough, if you don't understand what we're talking about when we talk about being saved, about surrendering your life completely to Christ, reach out to me, listen, you all those of you who are not Christians, not saved, you know who your Bible thumping friends are. And I guarantee you one of them can walk you through, the Roman road to salvation, or they can walk you through some of the scriptures that talk about what God offers us in terms of eternity. And I don't have where's a pen at? So let me have a pen, Micah. Give me a pen. I want to make this analogy a picture so you can kind of get an idea. Doesn't have to write. So I'm going to hold this pen up. And everybody knows that there's a tiny little ball on the end of that pen. It's just a teeny tiny little speck, right? I probably couldn't even measure it. And that's where the ink comes off, right? And so that little tiny speck represents our time on earth. And we spend so much time focusing on what I'm going to do inside that little tiny sphere that represents our life on earth. And we totally forget about all of eternity. Maybe this room, maybe the 9 acres we live on, maybe this whole state of Texas, in reference to that little tiny ball, represents all of eternity. We have to prepare ourselves for all of eternity, because this little tiny speck right here, it doesn't mean anything. You can have all the cars, you can have all the money, you can have all the bank accounts, you can have all the whatever stuff that you want. You can travel the world and be seasoned and all that other stuff. But if you end up in a hot place when you die, what good was it? So I encourage you, if you're not already fully surrendered to Christ Jesus, reach out to me, reach out to Justin, reach out to your pastor. I went to church for most of my adult life, and I didn't know what it meant to be fully surrendered to Christ. So just because you go to church, you know who you are. You go through there, you check the boxes, you put money in the plate. You're a good person. You don't steal anything, but it's not enough to just know. It's not. And the Bible's very clear. And so I highly recommend that that you reach out to somebody who does know. Reach out to me.
You
We're
know
gonna.
what, you know what I hear with your story a little bit though, JR?
What's that?
You say that it almost feels wrong to say all of these blessings came out of what happened with your son. But that is what surrendering your life to God looks like. Is God can everybody's going to go through it. Every single one of us are going to live through the muck and the awful and the horrific. But those of us who have completely surrendered, God can take that and turn it to good.
Yes.
And if you're not a Christian and if you haven't surrendered your life completely, the bad is just bad. There's no good that comes from that bad, but God will say, hold on, let me scoop you up. Let me piece this back together. Let me show you what I'm doing in the background. And if you're looking for that, and if you have God in your corner and you've actually decided that you're going to do this no matter what, and that you're going to let God direct your life, you get to see the good and you get to be blessed on the backside of all of the bad.
Right. And stay away from the Bible thumpers
awesome.
too, man. Some people are so heavenly minded they're no earthly good. Find somebody who's Christ is working in their life, like it's working, like it makes sense. Some people will tell you how to run it, but it's just a bunch of nonsense. I mean, God, that's not how God works. God works through small miracles, through everyday you doing nice things, and it's not you're so holy that you're no help. I mean, find somebody in your life that kind of has a grasp on how God operates, because it's not sitting down in a holy reverence and all that other stuff. That there is a place for that, but God he's everywhere. He's in everything I do. He's in every car ride. Every time I don't get hit, every time I don't get robbed or shot when I go to town. I mean, I live in Seguin. Good night. So, I mean, I'm just saying, every time something crazy doesn't happen, that's God. It's God showing up. You know what I mean? I mean, every time, a kid, we had this one kid, I won't name no names, decided he was Tarzan. We jumped from tree to tree and he's hanging there. And we got to get the trampoline under him before he breaks his back as he falls out of the tree.
But he was okay.
Did you do that, Micah?
No.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, no.
No.
So,
but
anyway.
really, God is in the little details. But you've got to be able to see God in the little details, and in the major tragedies. That's when God has a real ability to get in there and show you who He is. But you've got to be open to receiving that.
I think the first time I noticed what God was doing with all this was I have a cousin, and they didn't grow up in church. The mom's side of the family, they're Jehovah's Witnesses, but I know that they weren't active. Like Jeff never talked about going to church, but he was at JC's memorial, and his ex-wife and his daughter were saying, how is JR up there delivering that eulogy without his voice even cracking? And Jeff, not even really understanding all of it, turned to them and said, it's his faith.
Yeah.
It's because he believes that God is in control, and that's that man's faith. And I've had several people tell me that, and it's kind of weird when they tell you, because you're like,
yep.
Me?
Yeah. Well, funny story about Jehovah's Witnesses.
Are you sure?
Jehovah's Witnesses don't like to do Halloween because they don't like random people knocking on their door.
My head hurts. Ow. Ow. That would hurt. That was so funny that it hurt. Ow. Prince. I wonder if people thought when Prince knocked on doors if he was actually somebody trick-or-treating in the wrong time of year.
I'm just saying, Jehovah's Witnesses don't put up with that.
Because,
they
anyway.
send letters now.
Do they?
I didn't know
with
that.
the times.
Well, maybe it's because we're out in the middle of nowhere. We get letters.
They when we first moved out, there were still people knocking on doors.
After that one got attacked by a pig, I never seen another one again.
Wow. I think we're going to end this with a really, really funny story. First off, I love you guys. I love all the fans, people that watch the show all the time. And I say fans, I don't like that word because this is a ministry, and I want it to be funny because you have to understand that it's not all doom and gloom. It's not all fire and brimstone. God doesn't. What's that verse? I think it's Old Testament, but he says that God has a plan for us. It's not one of calamity and chaos, but one for us to prosper. And
Jeremiah 29. I know the plans I have for you, and they're good.
That's the one.
I think it's in 29. My brain makes up its own stuff, but it's possible.
It's probably right. And yeah, so it's okay to laugh and have fun because that's part of being happy. God does give us the desires of our heart. You know, this building that we're doing the podcast in was a ministry that God turned into a business, and it is definitely a desire, something that I love. I love coffee, and I get to do it, and I have people around me that love it. They get to do it, and it's a blessing. But don't ever think that you can't laugh just because you're trying to share the word, you know. And sometimes people that may be all they relate to. And I tell people all the time, why do you think we have different people, that God gives different people the gift of being a pastor or whatever? And it's because each person has a different personality. I guarantee you, there's 100 pastors that could have walked into my dad's room that day that Pastor Butch walked in there and tried to, you know, walk my dad through what the Bible says about being saved, being that dad was a Catholic his whole life. And dad would have probably thrown most of them out the window on their ears. And Pastor went in there and basically went toe to toe with my dad and made my dad laugh, and sat down, and dad prayed to receive Christ. And then he died 2 weeks later. So he uses all of us for his purpose. And as long as we can keep that in focus, that is so important. It's this lesson, this tragedy that we've gone through, not just as a family, because all my friends have gone through it. They're the ones that have propped us up. They've prayed for us. They've prayed with us. They've prayed over us. And so many people have gone through it, but you know, you can't help but notice what God's doing with it.
Well, and let me say this: God's a God that shows up. Okay,
Whew.
so that's when He's talking about idols and stuff. Where are your idols that can't hear? Where are your idols? So where's your cars, your monies? We have those today. So the things you put your money in, your focus, God is going to be a God that's going to show up every time, and the results are going to be unbelievable. So I mean, the God shows up every day to give us feed. I mean, I could sit down and we couldn't show you on paper how our life works because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't, and it will never make sense. And I have to start and end every sentence with God, good, bad, or indifferent, ugly, me learning, me being a fool, me being a nonsense. And I lived it, man. I mean, you know, just from the Army days to these days, there's one time my kid's like, is there a sin you ain't done? And I said, there ain't very many of them. But I mean, you know, if he can save me and put me in this kind of position, it can be anybody. I mean, I wouldn't have chose me. Ain't no way. You know, I'd have chose somebody better, or smarter, or faster, or more intelligent. And
I would have too.
But you got,
I would have chose
that. But luckily that guy ran off, and here I am. So I mean, there was 3 or 4 I had to chase him out of there with a stick when I first met her. But anyway, when you're kind of looking at your life and how He puts it together, you will always think that I am not enough. But God said, I put you, just like when He said to when Mordecai said to Esther, you were raised for such a time as this. I put you here, not somebody else. I could have put whoever I wanted here, but I chose you. So it's sometimes, you know, even Sonna looks at me, she goes, you need to cowboy up. It's time to start going, get moving. We've got to get this done. I tell my kids that too. You're in this position. You're the oldest. You're the second oldest. You're whatever. You're the big brother. And sometimes you just got to suck it up and keep going. That's just the way it goes. But God is a God. If I would say one thing about my God, is He is a God that shows up every time. And He ain't been whooped yet.
I love it. He says that all the time, and I love it. He has never been whooped, and He hasn't. So we're gonna stop with all that part, and we're gonna end this with Justin telling us a little story.
I'll prepare to dance.
And I'm so I did offer to pay him money to dance, but we're not doing that today. I think you should share the Costco story.
Okay, you want the Costco story?
I think the other was a little bit too much, but I think the Costco story is on point. The water park one is better.
The water park one is a little long.
And it's a little, I think the Costco is better.
All right, you want the Costco story?
Yeah, the Costco story.
All right, so Sonna said, hey, man, it's my day off, and I'm just minding my own business, trying to live my life. And she's like, hey, let's go to Costco. And I was like, all right. So anyway, so she's like, we're going to go down to Costco. Now, my favorite wing spot's down there. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go up there and hit up my wing spot. I get something I want. You go to Costco. That's fine. So I go down to my favorite wing spot, and boy, I tore me up some wings. You want to talk about some good old eating? I mean, it looked like a pack of wolves on a 3-legged cat when I got done with them wings. And I was feeling good. I was walking through Costco. Anybody knows Costco, down there in the back is where the meat's at. So I'm walking down through Costco. And I get about halfway to the meat counter, and I hear, and I was like, oh, good Lord. I said, oh, man. I said, I don't know if I can make it clear to the front before something real bad happens. So I keep walking a little bit farther, and I hear, and I'm like, oh, my gosh. And Sonna's like, are you okay, man? I ain't never seen nobody sweat. It's cold outside. I'm like, I can't stop sweating. It's hot. I'm about to pass out. I ate too much food. And I'm like, hopefully it's just gas. Please let it be gas because I'm fixing to make a fool of myself. So I go down there by the high-end meat, because there's a lot of folk over there by the high-end meat, and just let out this about 40-foot crop dust as I walk down the meat counter. And I knew it was bad because it was hot and it was painful coming out. But luckily, and you can see, as I was passing people like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And then I kind of cruise over to like where the pre-made sausages are because I want to see the disaster that I just left in my wake. Because how can you not let something like that loose and not bask in that glory, right? So I'm fixing to watch some people get tore up right now. And as I'm cruising around, like this inspector comes out or something. I don't know if he's a meat manager or something. He's like, we're going to inspect your cabinets, make sure everything's good for the upcoming holiday because it's right before holiday. And he walks by and he's like, oh my gosh. You couldn't hear him like that. He's like, man, I think this meat has gone bad. He goes, this meat is terrible smelling. Can you believe this? And he walked over to the next case and here's a face he makes right here. Ew, God. He goes, and I think that what happened was in cases is kind of funny. I think they grabbed that fart and they're swirling it like this here, just marinating it on there. So I'm trying not to laugh and give myself up because clearly I'm the culprit in this nonsense. And then all the little, they're like, we got to get this meat in the back. We got to check it. Something is wrong. And all these little minions come out with their little carts and they're emptying out the meat department. And I'm thinking like, oh, I'm getting some conviction going, oh man, I can't let Costco throw away all this meat. I'm looking real bad over here. But how do you walk up to the meat rascal and be like, hey man, lunch got the best of me, but I done blowed up this whole deal. I didn't mean to come in here and make you throw all this good meat up, but I couldn't stop laughing. And then all of a sudden I'm watching this all unfold. And I'm trying not to laugh. And I got to get out of here before something real bad happens. So I don't know how that ended up sorting out. Probably not good. And I'm walking up to the front there and I hear this next rumble like, I'm like, oh man, we're on a time frame now. I can't be over here. We fixing to have to get a janitor back here. And anyway, and as you're kind of heavier and stuff when that starts happening, you feel bad, And so I finally make it to the bathroom and thank goodness ain't nobody in there. And I get in there and unload and I'm sitting there just kind of basking in this and laughing because it's just some nonsense. And I hear somebody from outside the bathroom go, oh my gosh, you did a pipe break. It smells like straight sewage in here. I don't know if there was like a green gas coming out of there. So anyway, Costco got a picture up of me when I walk in there now. I think they kind of figured out the crime scene and they're like, hey man, when you come in here, you can't be, we lost a lot of money in meat that day because I was on the cellophane. It was everywhere. So I felt bad about it, but it's an average trip to Costco.
He's no longer allowed to go to the wing spot.
I just wanted y'all to know a little bit about what I
Sorry
did.
for the regulars, by the way. If you're regular to this, that's not normal.
Oh man, yeah. So Justin's been good for my heart here lately, and I think he needs to be on the. Was that you? They used to have that deaf comedy jam where they would just have the entertainers do live mic comedy, and I think none of y'all try because I've already signed him. I'm his talent.
The water
agent.
park one was pretty bad.
The water park was pretty bad, but we won't.
You
share
put a
that
chubby, hairy guy in a water park, real bad.
It started on that one because I might cry or pee my pants, one or the other.
20 years of this. Look at her. She looks fantastic.
Either way, yeah. I don't know how she's sane. She hasn't lost her mind yet.
So I raised the children. He can do stand up.
Woo! Yeah.
Everybody's got to be good at something.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate you guys taking time out of your day.
Yeah, man.
And I know that y'all were here a little bit longer than we expected, but I appreciate your time and I appreciate everything that your family has, done for us. And I know that you're just living your life for God, and we just got crossed in your path, and you would have done this for anybody. Well, maybe not anybody, but for us for sure. But anyway, I'm so grateful for your whole family. Frank, I'm grateful for Frank. Frank is going back to north of the Mason-Dixon line tomorrow, actually. and we're gonna miss Frank around here.
I didn't know they had a Coast Guard base up there.
There's a Coast Guard base in Ohio. It's for Lake Erie.
Going back to Ohio, for somebody that knows a lot about Coast Guard, I'm pretty sure it sounds like you're the one that's in there.
He seems pretty intrigued with it, doesn't
Right?
he?
He
Exactly.
is. He knows a lot about coasties.
Just making the
Anyway,
world safer one puddle at a time.
I love everybody except for Space Force. You have to prove yourself, and you're gonna have to, literally get in a ship and go warp speed into space before I legitimize your branch. But I'm so grateful for all the people that God's put in our path and our family, and just know that even though we can have good fun and we joke around, that when it really comes down to being serious, that we, it's important. It's more important than anything you've ever done in your life. Surrender your life today. Don't wait, because tomorrow is not promised. The Bible says tomorrow is not promised, and we don't know when Christ is coming back. And so, you get in a car accident tomorrow and you haven't made that peace with God, you haven't surrendered to Him. I don't care how good of a person you are, but it's going to be hot where you go for the rest of all eternity.
Yeah, if you think you're a good person, just don't let them bury you in a sweater. It might be hot where you're headed. Just saying.
So, what he said. I love you guys. Treat each other the way God intended us to treat one another, with love, kindness, and respect. And for those of you who don't catch us during the week, we're probably going to play it again on Friday because it's just too funny not to.
Sorry.
And I love y'all. And God bless. We'll see you Friday. All right. See ya. Bye.